Khalas, it's okay. We had to spend a lot of time talking about pride. We had spent a lot of time on talking about anger. We had spent a lot of time talking about expectations and why is it that that pride leads to those expectations. We had also talked about how one of the most difficult feelings for us to manage and to overcome are setting those expectations and understanding that, okay, how I deal with someone who's taken advantage of me, how I deal with someone who's hurt me. And we had said that what kind of outlook can I change that to? So for example, if somebody stole $100 from me, what are some things I can do to overcome my anger toward that person? Huh? Take him to jail, right? Okay, what else? Huh? Beat him up? Okay, here. And I'm going to ask this question very honestly, for those of you that have beat up someone before. When you actually physically assault that person, and that person is hurt, or that person's on the ground, what happens? So, in the moment, there's catharsis, right? Like you feel, right, when the adrenaline's gone, like in the moment, you're like, I got him. And then immediately after that, what happens?
You feel bad.
You don't feel good anymore. So, does beating up actually help? No, right? So, physical violence usually doesn't help in those situations. What else? Acknowledging is something that's hugely important, right? So the first step always with any of these things is like, all right, the moment I'm angry, I'm allowed to accept that I am angry, and I'm allowed to accept that I'm upset, and that's completely reasonable, and that's fine. Like, what do I do then?
Your choices are either you can confront the person or you can...
Okay. Even before confronting. Even before confronting, what decision do I need to make at that point? Right, the moment I acknowledge, I'm like, okay, you know what, I'm angry, I'm upset, yes. Okay, and what are the choices I have? What I'm going to do about it. The first decision I want us to make is a spiritual one.
Do I forgive them?
Do I forgive them or not? Right, that's the first spiritual decision I need to make. And I own my forgiveness. Nobody can force me to forgive, right? And I can choose if I want to or I don't. But tayyib, if my choice is not forgiveness, then what is the second choice? Because there has to be release. I'm going to be very honest here. Holding in my heart is not an option. So what is the second way of release? Crying? That's an expression. And there's nothing wrong with that. Even if I confront.
Ask Allah.
Remember, this is a spiritual decision. Ask Allah what?
To take my revenge for me, like make the offer.
You haven't decided if you remember, you said you haven't forgiven, then what do you do?
Yes, Allah strike them down.
Huh. Yes, because Allah to turn his hands to dust. Right? No. You do, so either you can forgive, or you can leave the affair to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and hold him accountable. If that's what you believe you said. So, no, even hasbi Allah ni'mal wakeel, I agree 100%. But what does that actually mean? It means that I leave this person's affair to Allah. And I trust Allah to take care of it. Where is the affair not anymore? It's not here. Right. So with forgiveness, you've removed it. And with tafweed, in leaving something to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you've also removed it. Because one you've given to Allah and one you've given back to the person. Right? But at the end of the day, I'm not holding on to it.
What about the forgiveness that you can't forget?
Okay. So here, okay, this is another good question. Is forgetting a condition for forgiveness? No, it's not. Can I change the nature of the relationship I have with someone?
Yes.
Okay, example. Same example, somebody stole $100 from me. I know this person stole $100 from me. I've decided that, you know what, it's okay. It's just $100, whatever. I forgive him. And he comes to me and he's like, hey, listen, can I borrow $100?
No.
Okay, most of us will say what?
No.
We'll say no, I'm not giving you the money again. Does that mean I haven't forgiven him?
No. It just means you don't trust him.
It means now the interactions going forward, I don't trust you with money. It doesn't mean that I'm not willing to interact with you. And maybe if I don't want to, that's my choice as well. What is the only thing I can't do? So I can completely change the nature of my interaction with that person.
You can't bring it back up.
Huh? Well, yes and no.
Or you can't constantly hold it over their head.
But Because the moment I'm like, oh, remember when you stole $100 from me? What have I not done at that point? I haven't released. Remember, we were talking about, like, I haven't let go. I mean, that means I'm still holding on to it. And at that point, I have to make a decision. Do I forgive him or not? And if I haven't forgave him, it's like, okay, well then you have to leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
What about the extra, right? What about
Sure.
like, in that case, there's others that can say, we know he stole, you forgive him, but they instigate to the fire. Like, what if they're like, but yeah, like they witness, right? Like, let's just say I stole from you.
Or they know. Yeah.
Faisal and Ibrahim are like,
Uh-huh.
yo, bro, like, remember when he stole from you? Like, you can't give him $100. What about them?
So is that a healthy relationship?
These guys?
Yeah.
You become the abuser at the end.
That-
You are like every time.
Well, not just that. The real question is like, okay, if I have people who are not encouraging me to do good, and doing good doesn't mean, because you have on the opposite end of the spectrum, it's okay, akhi, it's just $100, you know, you should forgive him. Like, don't you love that Allah forgives you and you be a forgiving person and blah, blah, blah. That's just a different type of blackmail, right? So you have emotional blackmail both ways, right? Emotional blackmail and be like, oh no, come on, you have to forgive him. The problem I have with the emotional blackmail in that way, that you have to forgive, is that it forces people to lie. That's the problem I have. Yeah, well, not just you don't feel ownership, you're not actually forgiving. This is the issue I have. It's just lip service. And I had a young woman ask me once, she's like, okay, well, what if I fall to that? Like, what if I succumb to that and I told the person that you're forgiven? I was like, well, then you need to be accountable for lying.
Because from their perspective, you're forgiven.
Yeah, because that person has done what they needed to do, or they didn't, I don't know, right? But basically, there were enough steps taken where this person has now received the lip service and they've heard that they are forgiven. So you've only managed to lie to yourself. Yes?
Question. What if someone says both, like, I've forgiven you and I've left it up to Allah? What then?
Well, then they didn't understand what forgiveness is. Like, so am I. Like, then you have to decide, because forgiveness means that when we stand in front of Allah, I'm not going to ask for my right. And not for...
That's what they want, though.
Okay, but then that's not forgiveness. Forgiveness, it could be a worldly forgiveness, meaning like I'm not going to ask for my money back, but when we stand in front of Allah, yeah, well, I'm going to get you. It could mean that in a worldly sense, I don't know. But it's like, you took something from me, you hurt me, you punched me, like, yeah, I'm not going to punch you back. Like, in that way, I've forgiven you. But when we stand in front of Allah, I'm going to ask. So, I don't know, right? Like, without actually hearing that individual and what they intended, it's difficult for me to gauge. Yeah.
Judgment is always on top of, your own wish. Because if it's something really bad and unforgivable, so maybe you are very nice and at the moment
Mm-hmm.
you forgive,
Yeah. In your heart.
but Allah is, because He knows what happened exactly. He would judge the situation much better.
No, I'm saying, listen, Allah ahkam al-hakimin, right? Allah Azza wa Jal, He's the ultimate, best judge. But at the end of the day, I'm just talking about in terms of our dealings with each other.
Okay, in front of God,
Yeah,
you forgive,
yeah.
but it's possible that God
Allah will still hold them accountable?
will not accept that forgiveness from you if that person hurt you a lot. Is that possible?
How?
I mean, the final say is it to Allah.
Listen, the final acceptance is from Allah. There's no doubt. Here, and let me be very clear in the conditions here. No matter how much I've been wronged or how much I wrong someone else, the ultimate decision of who is going to paradise and who's going to hellfire is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My oppression of someone doesn't necessarily bar me from paradise. But will this person get their right? 100%. Does that help? Example of this. A lot of people, how can you say, the man who killed 100 men, how many rights did he take? He took 100 rights. And where did Allah put him? In Jannah. Does this mean that that last bridge that we cross, this is not the Sirat, the last bridge we cross to enter paradise, on that bridge is where justice will be served. And it is very likely that that man is going to stand in what? He's going to deal with 100 people. That you took my right. I want my right back, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them their right back. But is that going to stop him from entering paradise? No. Right? These are two separate conversations. And I think sometimes we confuse them, or I think sometimes we try to fool ourselves into thinking that because this person wronged me, I can bar their entry into paradise. Like, that doesn't work. That's not how it works. Like, I'm not God. I can't determine if a person goes to paradise or if they go to hell just because of how they dealt with me. And it could be evil. It could be wrong. It could be completely out of, you know what I mean? Something completely unacceptable. The only thing I can promise for sure is if somebody took my right, then what? I will get my right back. Unless I've forgiven them. Now, what does forgiveness look like? It's a very personal thing. The only thing that I think is very important that we forget is honesty. Either when I'm dealing with someone, that person has a right to know if I forgave them or not. Are there certain situations where it's not just of me? Like someone, for example, they stole a quarter from me. How much value does a quarter have? It's like very little, right? In the overall scheme, there's very few things you can purchase. Maybe people only use them for like, you know, all these carts now. But like, at the end of the day, it's a very small amount, and if that person comes and they ask for forgiveness for me, I was like, no, I'm never going to forgive you. I can't believe you stole 25 cents from me. Then I might have some, it's like, yo, bro, it's like 25 cents. Like, here, just take it. Like, I'll give it to you. Like, you want me to sell it to you right now? I could give you 50 cents. Like, you know, there are a lot of things I think it's important to keep in mind that as there's a reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encourages forgiveness, but He doesn't what? He doesn't force it. He doesn't obligate it. Because He doesn't want us to be petty either. Just because I have the ability to not forgive, it doesn't mean that I should have a habit of not forgiving, right? If I'm constantly holding other people accountable, the question we need to ask ourselves is like, okay, if I'm constantly holding other people accountable, it's also very possible that what? That they hold me accountable for all the small things that we do. And all of us, maybe I didn't smile at someone when they walked in, maybe I didn't give them salam, maybe I looked at them funny, maybe I dealt with them in the wrong way, maybe I used the wrong word with them, right? Like, we have like hundreds of interactions every single day with so many different people. If we started holding each other accountable for all these small little miscommunications and misunderstandings, how functional would society be? Right? Right? It's already dysfunctional, right? Like, we're just going to add dysfunction to it. Like, there has to be a level of tolerance. There has to be.
You know how we were talking about insults?
Yeah. This is one of those things I was talking about, right? When I say someone go to hell, number one, do I have the physical ability to be like, all right, let me pack my bags, you know, and I'm going to this physical place and be like, oh wow, it's like really hot here. Like, there can be repercussions to that. But at the end of the day, it's a saying that the meaning behind it is actually very weak. Because when I say to someone, go to hell, what do I actually mean? Get away from me, right? Like, remember we were talking, like, kick rocks, go to hell, all of these things. I'm not saying it because I was like, okay, no, I want you to pack your bags and get in your car and take a physical journey to Jahannam, right? That's clearly not what I mean. And not just that, even if the person, whatever it is that they wanted, they don't have the physical ability or even to override Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't have the ability to override Allah, right? Or to demand from Allah anything. So at the end of the day, like, what I'm asking for is something that's impossible. So I don't, saying something like that, I would say that statements, regardless of what they are, regardless of what we say, as long as they're not statements of disbelief, right? That's something that's really important. There's spiritual accountability for those. Anything else is disliked, it's makruh. Even terms that we use, like swear words, for example. People are like, oh, you know, saying the F word and the S word and blah, 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 that's haram. It's not, they're just words. Like, who deemed that these words specifically are ones that Allah will hold me accountable for? Like, did they have a conversation with Allah and Allah was like, yeah, these 4 words, if you use them, then I'm going to hold you accountable for them. Should I keep that in my, should I speak like that? No, right? It's not socially acceptable. It's something that's not preferred. People don't like hearing those terms. That's fine. But can I say a person will be spiritually accountable for those things? No, that's where it becomes very difficult. But where does accountability come in? With those same terms. If I use them against somebody? Right? If I say something about someone. Why? Because, and it's not because of the term, it's because of what? How it's affected that person. Right? So if I say something like F you, how is the person who's receiving it going to feel? They're going to feel insulted. Right? They're going to feel hurt, they're going to feel bad. And because of the pain I caused, that's where accountability is. But if I'm writing and I misspell something, I was like, oh, F. For example, is it directed toward anyone?
No.
Right? Is it the best thing to say? No, right? Like I should expand my vocabulary a little bit, right? Like I should choose other words. I should be more choiceful because I don't want to speak like that because it's not something that's looked up upon in society, right? It's looked down upon. But again, connecting spiritual accountability to certain things, we have to be very clear. Because the problem is, if I start putting the haram label on everything, then what happens? Huh? Then nothing becomes haram, right? Right? If I say everything is haram, then nothing is haram. It loses its value. And one of the conversations like I had with parents is like, hey, listen, be very careful in what you tell your kids is haram and halal. Because if you just start making everything haram, eventually you know what they're going to say in their own, everything's haram anyway. And what happens at that point?
They don't care.
At that point, there's no spirituality, they don't care anymore. But if I become very selective, and if I'm honest with them, it's very different. It's like, well, why can't I smoke? I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's unhealthy. Well, it's not haram? No, I'm not saying that. It's like, it's also not haram to go to the grocery store and fill my jalebi up with apples, right? It's like, oh, you know what? I want to save the environment. I'm not going to get a bag. Let me put like 10 apples in here and walk out. Is it haram? No. How's everybody going to look at me? Like I'm crazy. They're going to be like, yo, there's something wrong with this guy. This is not normal. This is not how we function in society. So I think if we explain things from an honest, religiously academic point, it's much easier for all of us to kind of understand and consume and swallow things versus, oh, can I do this? No, it's haram. Oh, can I go here? No, that's haram. Versus, okay, if you do this at this place, then it becomes haram. It becomes a lot easier to conceptualize and it becomes a lot easier for them to compartmentalize because what have I done? I've given them space to navigate when they thought there was no space to navigate.
Do you think anyone says self as an arrogant mindset?
Making everything haram? I think, I don't want to say arrogant, but I think it's a very controlling mindset. Right? It's easier for me to label something haram than it is for me to actually explore. And there can be an element of arrogance in the sense that I'm shy to acknowledge my own ignorance. Right? Like, you know what? I'm probably actually ignorant about this. Because when it's a crutch, right? So as a cultural Muslim, like somebody who maybe hasn't studied Islam academically, if I see something new, what is my knee-jerk reaction? Haram. That's the knee-jerk reaction, right? Or this is some type of bid'ah, this is some type of innovation. My first reaction to anything new is going to be to distance myself, right? This is new. This is haram. I don't know if you guys were from, like when Bitcoin got very popular, what was the first scholarly reaction to Bitcoin? Oh, it's haram, this is gambling, and you can't do this, and blah, blah, blah. And someone had asked me, and they're like, Sheikh, like, what do you think about Bitcoin? I was like, listen, there are people who say it's haram. They're like, yeah. I was like, when it becomes unaffordable, then it'll become halal. And what happened? Today, Bitcoin hit about like, what, 102? And the people were saying this when it was like $3,000. I think we need to be a little bit more careful on how we approach and how we deal with things. And we have to learn to be, again, religiously, academically honest when we have these conversations. Like some of it can do with pride, because
it's because you don't know why. You can't explain why this is not good.
Yeah.
So it's a default.
And when, but I'm saying, when I can't explain why, what am I refusing to acknowledge? My own ignorance, right? Well, all I can do, okay, wait, let me sit down, let me read about it, let me learn about it, let me see it's about, and because when somebody brings me something new, what should be my first reaction?
I don't know.
Halal. No, I'm saying no. my first reaction should be, I don't know. And this is where you actually see the wisdom of Imam Malik's statement, saying that a third of knowledge is, I don't know. Right? That's where you see that wisdom. Because it's like, I don't know, I need to learn about this, I need to look into it, then I can give you a proper ruling and proper feedback on this. What should I do in the meantime? That's up to you. You asked me, I need to do my own research, I don't know enough about it. Or, in the meantime, go find someone maybe who knows more than I do. It's like, oh, but there are so many people who are saying it's haram, blah, blah, blah. I said, listen, at the end of the day, people are going to give you all kinds of fatwa. If it's not lying, if it's not stealing, if it's not murder, if it's not riba, if it's not zina, there's going to be khilaf. I promise you.
At what point does being too many opinions become dangerous?
It depends. That goes back to your personal intention. So if I'm seeking a lot of opinions because I'm trying to avoid an obligation purposely in my heart, this is where you're held accountable. But if I'm seeking opinions because it's like, no, it's not really convincing. What does this guy say? He kind of said what the other guy said. All right, what does this person have to say? No, that actually makes a lot of sense. This guy, he's saying the opposite of the previous guy said, but he's not giving any reasoning to what he's saying, right? So I think fatwa shopping, quote unquote, I think is fine. I think it's reasonable, and it's reasonable for the person who's looking for an answer, like looking for a sincere answer. But I'm saying I have a problem with the term loophole because there are certain quote unquote loopholes that we have available to us. It's like, okay, you know what? I'm on my way home. I'm about 100 miles out. I have a choice to combine and shorten now because after a half hour I'm not going to be able to do that. Is that a loophole? No. It is, right? It is a loophole, right? By definition, it's a loophole because I'm avoiding something. But have I avoided the obligation? No. I haven't avoided the obligation. So do you guys see the difference? Yes. Right? If you're trying to completely avoid an obligation, that's where it's extremely problematic. But if I was like, oh man, if I do it like this, I actually get to shorten. If I do it like this, I can actually combine. If I do it like this, I don't have to fast. Today, I still have to make it up. All right? Or if I do it like this, okay, only the Hanbalis allow cotton socks and wiping over them, even though I'm not Hanbali. Am I still making wudu? Again, I haven't avoided an obligation. Right? Yeah.
What happens in the context of travel shorts and all that?
Mm-hmm.
If you're always on the road?
If you're always? Sure. But the thing is, I knew a brother who worked for Siemens. Siemens is like one of the biggest German, like, you know what I mean? Like they manufacture and they do all kinds of stuff. Every other day he was flying to some other country. And he was like, man, I feel like I'm in a perpetual state of travel and I'm always combining and shortening. Okay. I don't have a problem with that. Even if I combine and shorten, I was like, hey, listen, if you feel sometimes you want to pray the full prayer, you can. Right? You don't have to take advantage of that. I said, and if it makes you feel better, if you're in a place on a Friday and there's a masjid that is convenient for you, go pray Jummah. Right? You don't have to skip Jummah. You can't. You have, again, because you're a traveler, you have a choice. But go. So I think.
So he, for instance,
yeah.
is he still obligated to make one of 3 Jummahs?
No.
Or he perpetually?
Yeah. Good. He's constantly traveling. And one of the conditions for the obligation of Jummah is that you have to be a resident. To the point where some of the madahib, if he came to Jummah, they wouldn't count him toward their quorum. Meaning that if I need to have minimum 12 men, all of those 12 men need to be residents. They need to be residents. And if I have if I have 10 men and 2 travelers came in, some madahib will be like, no, we still can't make Jummah.
What's the minimum, right? 2 or 3?
There's a difference of opinion. Like, so you have from 40 to a group to 12, and then the literalists, they say you need to have at least 2. So, but again, this is a spectrum. Yeah.
Do you see value in labeling things as makruh, for instance, or is it better just to focus on what's halal and haram or basically?
I think there's value in that, right? Because part of the reason is, when I say something is makruh, that means that a person actually gets reward for avoiding it. So that's where I see value. Example of that, someone had asked me about the same thing with cigarettes. I was like, I think they're makruh. And not just because of the harm that they cause, but people don't like in general, people don't like the smell of cigarettes. In general. Like there are some that do, but in general, people don't like it. They don't like the smell. It's annoying. If I'm standing next to someone in prayer, like I don't want to stand next to him anymore. And I think there is, again, I would say that there's probably a good 80% of people or 70% of people who just do not like that smell. So if you avoid that, you're now making those 70% of people, wow, what is going on? I was like, if I can keep those 70% of people, is there not more reward in that? Yeah, absolutely, 100% I see that. Eating healthy, I think is recommended. Why? Because a person is healthier, they can contribute more, right? They're more active. Like there's a lot of things to that. So I think even having those gray labels that allow people to giving them more pathways to reward, I think they have value. Yes. Another example. There's have you guys heard of misyar marriage? Misyar. So basically what happened, like in Saudi, one of the biggest problems that they have over there is like how, like the marriages and like a lot of the functionality that's happening there. So what happens is that there are only so many men that the women can marry. There's a legal mandate that a Saudi woman cannot marry a foreigner unless she turns 25 or she is divorcee. This is the rule. Like people talk about racism, right? But like, so you have this situation now where you have a woman who might be 24, she can't get married. Then 25 comes. For most men, this is not a desirable age, right? They've reached a point now where it's not desirable for them to marry a woman who's quote unquote aged out. So now this woman, she becomes independent, she's financially independent, maybe she lives with her parents, but she still wants what? Companionship, right? She still wants companionship, she still wants to get married. And she's like, okay, hey, listen, I don't need any money from you. I'm already financially independent. I just need companionship when I travel. I want somebody to go with. I want somebody to spend time with, every once in a while. So they came up with this misyar setting. Now the misyar marriage is basically, on paper, the woman, she says, I'm giving up all of my financial rights. All my financial, I do not expect anything from him financially, but he's still legally my husband. On paper, is this contract halal or not? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It fulfills all the conditions, right? Even if the mahar is little to low, it fulfills the condition. There are two witnesses, ijab wa qabul, there's acceptance from both sides. She is proposing the condition and he's accepting the condition. On paper, this marriage is halal, it's fine. Somebody had asked me, they're like, what do you think about this type of marriage? I was like, I think this marriage is makruh. And they were like, why? I was like, because these type of marriages don't lead to family, and it's only a band-aid solution to a larger societal problem. Meaning that if you can avoid that type of marriage where you have full responsibility, I think that is better. Because that is what leads to families, that is what leads to children, that's what leads to XXYZ. So I believe it does have a role in multiple different contexts.
Why can't they have, in your judgment, why would that not have a family?
They tend not to, because how's the guy viewing it? He's like, oh, I don't have any financial responsibility. I don't need to take care of her. And for most men, for most husbands, what is their primary responsibility? To take care of your wife. And if I don't have to take care of my wife, all I'm being used for is what? I'm just being used, companionship, and many times, if not most times, what kind of companionship? Sexual. Like, I'm just being honest. All it leads is to like the sexual companionship or like sexual pleasure. It doesn't lead to any of these other things. And what does that not lead to? It doesn't. Because as a man, if I know I'm only being used for sexual pleasure, what do I not want from this relationship? I don't want children.
What if he wants children? What if he says, I'm happy and I want children?
That doesn't happen. You get a real marriage.
Are you just, is this like, what you're saying is that this becomes like halal prostitution? Is that essentially?
No, it doesn't, right? It actually doesn't. I think it doesn't lead to family. That's all it does, right? So, and that's the main problem I have with it. And it removes responsibility. Or like, there's a lot of elements of marriage that just are gone at that point, and it doesn't lead to anything healthy. Like I said, it's a band-aid solution for a systemic problem. If they want to solve the problem, remove the laws. That's a simple way of solving it. Like, remove the laws, allow women to marry. The more restrictions you put on marriage, the more facade, and the more stopgap solutions you come up with.
The state just sponsor financial aid for people who want to get married. Wouldn't that be easy?
They do. They do, but you have to understand there are certain societies, like even like especially Saudi society, where it's not just legal pressure that many people are under. They're also under a lot of tribal pressure. So I'm not allowed to marry outside of Saudi citizens. I'm not allowed to marry outside of my tribe. I'm not allowed to marry outside of certain families within my tribe. I'm only allowed to marry the men who are of this standing within the tribe. What's happening?
Narrowing down.
Right, you're just squeezing a limited population. And the thing is, like, okay, if you have this man, that means that he's highly valued. Like, he's highly desirable. Can every woman marry him? Misyar, yeah, sure, right? Like, but he because he's highly desirable, like not every woman is going to have access. And now you have a bunch of women that are unmarried. And sometimes they still say suck. And sometimes they'll do misyar because they want to hide the marriage from their tribe. Because that responsibility is now removed, and they don't know. So, like, you know, she has a business, she's traveling, she's going here, blah, blah, blah. Like, she'll meet up with her husband. And the family doesn't know who it is. That guy might be outside of the tribe. He might not even be a Saudi national. Like I said, it's a stopgap solution for a systemic problem.
Is he still obligated to 4?
You can go more than 4.
Yeah, is it more than 4?
Back to arrogance.
Something on the previous,
Yeah, sure.
because there was a sister who asked about I don't know how I say it on there, about women's being in the hellfire.
Yeah.
But isn't that, I was trying to tell her, like, she was worried, like, it's like due to more women
Yeah. So
at the time, whatever that time is.
I'm saying it's not about the time. It's about all of mankind. If you have trillions of people, what percentage of them are women? I would imagine a majority, right? So a majority, like 55%. Is that a majority?
No, actually, it's less than that.
You're talking about today. I'm talking about from Adam until the end of time.
Yeah. I mean, typically, across the globe, it's like 49.5% women, 50.5%. There's always more men because they live shorter. It's like the, sort of a
Okay.
natural balance that's happening.
I guess, I don't know.
Yeah.
But this is the problem. What he said. I would imagine one explanation is that there are a majority of women, and that is what's representative in the hellfire.
There isn't a time where there's just going to be like that. I read a hadith where
Yeah, no, he said there's a hadith where the Prophet he said there will come a time where one man is responsible for 10 or 50 women or something like that. Yani, like women are going to outnumber men by X amount. By a large amount. And the thing is, yeah, it's a large amount. So the thing is, okay, if you have that, there are two possibilities to understand. Like, okay, over all of the history of mankind, is it possible that there are more women than men? Yeah, mumkin, right? I don't know. Like, there's no way for us to even have that survey data. Because these are,
51%.
it could be, that just means that, okay, they're more, right?
Just the way it's phrased,
Yeah.
like the way men put it, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, it's a lot of
Yeah,
When he saw that snapshot,
yeah,
it was one snapshot.
yeah. It's not like he saw something like, it's not necessary that he looked over all of the hellfire and he saw that. Maybe in that place in the hellfire was dedicated to prostitutes. مثلا.
Or a snapshot
Yeah.
in time.
In time.
Also.
That's
Because
also.
the number of people in hell changes over time.
Anything's possible. Because what is the purpose behind the hadith? I think this is many times what people forget. He says when he's addressing women, what is he going to do? What is a big motivator? Fear. Right? It's like, in this space, in this time, in this place, I saw mostly women. Hey, women, you better step your game up. Hey, women, you better do this, right? He didn't tell this to men. Had he told men, it makes sense for men to use it against women. It's like, yeah, he told us that women are going to... He came to tell the women why, because he wanted to encourage them. Had he meant for it to be something used against them, he would have spoken to the men, but he didn't. It's the same thing when he came to them. He said, I haven't seen any group of people who are more deficient in their intellect and their deen than women. He wasn't talking to men. He came and amongst the women, he said to them, he said, listen, you guys tend to lean toward these things. Be aware of it. Don't have these shortcomings. This is why women fall into these traps, into these pitfalls.
Cautious,
Huh? Yeah, be cautious. It's like, hey, listen, yeah, your shahada is only equal to one. Why? Because you guys tend not to know about the financial transactions and the money that's involved in many things. You be aware of that. There's a reason. And you guys don't pray as much because you're on your cycles. Don't waste your time when you're on your cycle. Don't think that you're on vacation. I'm saying, like, it's very clear on what he sallallahu alaihi wasallam intended when he addressed, because again, he's addressing women. He's not addressing men, saying that, okay, hey, use this against them. And hey, anytime your wife is disobedient, remind her of this, right? That's not what's happening. He's coming and addressing them, saying that, hey, listen, these are two things, these are two characteristics that are generally found amongst women. Be aware of them so you can overcome them. Yeah, sure.
I heard it today. I just have one question. It was like, I want to enter through, I want doors open for me in Jannah. So
Yeah.
it said, if you pray and if you fast and if you obey your husband,
Yeah.
all the doors will open.
Yeah.
But what does obeying mean? Like anything he says, I say, okay.
No, it means engaging in his preferences, right? Doing the best that you can to not, if he's clear in what his demands are, right, do the best you can to fulfill them.
It's that simple.
It's that simple.
All the doors will open for me. I don't have to
Because at the end of the day, out of all the responsibility, right, believing in Allah and His Messenger, this is universal. Praying, this is universal. Fasting, this is universal, and there are more exceptions for women in that. Giving zakat. Many times most women don't have a lot of property where they have to give zakat on, or they'll rely on their husbands. Even making hajj. If I don't have the ability to give my regular zakat, how am I going to make hajj? Out of the 5 pillars, 2.5 stand. You know what I'm saying? Even the draft, military draft. We have to go to war, we're going to fight. Am I going to turn here? No, I'm going to turn over here and be like, all right guys, let's go. And the reason I'm saying this is like, okay, tayyib, if there are clearly less responsibilities on one group of people, then there has to be that much more effort for other things and in other spaces. And what is the easiest low-hanging fruit? It's like, be kind to your husband. Because obedience, number one, is only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But if there are things that, okay, yeah, my husband likes this type of food, okay, make an effort to cook that type of food. If my husband likes it when I come and greet him, when he comes home, okay, greet him when he comes home. If my husband likes, that the bed be made, or he likes things a certain way, or he likes things organized a certain way, even though you have your own preference, do that for him.
As long as if he's happy,
It's
all the doors will open and you do that.
again, for a husband, here, let me put it this way. For a woman to be obedient to her husband, what does the husband have to be to her? He has to be kind. Not just kind. He has to. That's because you know what helps obedience? Kindness. You know what helps obedience? Transparency. I would like this, this, and this. I prefer this, this, and this. Very clear in the things that he wants. And if he's here, let me put it this way. And I'll change it in something that we utilize today. If I want to be treated like a queen, I should treat him like a king. It's very reciprocal. Yeah, it's absolutely. Because even this, why did the Prophet ﷺ tell this to women and not to men? What is the most important thing for a man? Respect. That's it. It's the most important thing. Yeah. Yeah. So you know what you do? Check in every couple weeks. Be like, hey, do you feel I respect you? Just you asking that, it'll just put a glow on his face.
I was working at all the doors, and then I heard that. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is all I have to do, and then all the doors open.
And listen, sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes the path for some people very easy. Don't take advantage of it. Run. Yes.
I find it problematic when you have cases like where the woman is oppressed.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. She has to bear it. Because no, not just that. Where is obedience? Obedience is only in obedience. Does that make sense? Right. I only show obedience when there are things that I have to be obedient in. Should I be obedient in abuse? I'm saying, does that even make sense? Like I said, there's only obedience in obedience, and in abuse, there's no obedience. Like, what are you doing? You can't stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be like, oh, I was being obedient. It's the same as who? كُنَّا مُسْتَضْعَفِينَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. That I was weak and I was oppressed. And blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you just made yourself a victim. Nobody told you to do that. So, I mean, there has to be a level of accountability that's there. I think for some women, it's an escape. Where they can be like, and it helps justify what they're dealing with and what they're facing. But may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله
So I wanted to end this chapter. He always ends with like a beautiful dua, like we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for pardon and well-being in this life and the next through His grace and generosity. Next week, inshallah, this is basically talking about the physical manifestation of arrogance and why that's a problem, why that's an issue. But we'll begin that discussion next week. Wallahu a'lam wa sallallahu ala khayri khalqin.